I wanted to see if this log right here had anything left in it. It was not the best when I cut it down, but it's been sitting here and it's seasoned for a couple of years. You might even remember this video is when I was comparing the 562 to a 372, and I cut this down and bucked it up and took most of the top out of here for firewood, but I wasn't really happy with the log itself, so I left a lot. Was cleaning up the new snowmobile trail and I saw this over here and figured, you know something? So I've got two chains on both these saws that aren't the best. I'm going to make some cookies, but really it's not representative of the saws, you know, in a precise way. But JPS right there, that's the one that was built with a 50 millimeter Madsen top end. And I'd say that's more than a match of the stock 372 running cleanly. For that matter, I know it is. It'll pretty much handily outcut one of those in terms of performance. Of course, it's not going to last as long because it's what it is. So if both these saws get through this wood with roughly the same effort, that saw right there is an absolute success, because if you remember, it's built on the 365 48 millimeter top end. Both of them have Chicom cases. Both of them have Chinese handles. That's got the better one in my mind, and that's got that squarish one that has a sticky throttle. It simply won't release unless I release the safety. It's kind of goofed up. I got to get rid of it before it gets me hurt. It's kind of dangerous. And both of them have a similar muffler mod, and both of them have the X-Torque carburetor with a cut original edition style intake manifold. And I had a little video where I showed what it looked like looking up into the carburetor, and you don't gain as much, but you don't lose as much as you would think. But for whatever reason, they run good. And the reason why I'm running them that way is not because I think the X-Torque carburetor is particularly better than the original edition carburetor that's designed for these, those Walbros. It's just, this is about salvaging the bones of dead saws, so I'm trying to use those parts because I have a bunch of them, you know. And I think it's representative of a person with a blown up 372 X-Torque and have to use a different set of cases, in this case aftermarket, because the PTO side pocket would be beat out like a lot of them are. So these saws are relevant relative to that, salvaging the bits and pieces off an X-Torque. That's what this is really about, and evaluating options to do so. You know, those 48 millimeter top ends, boy, you see them online on a regular basis for around 50 bucks. And a lot of guys don't think they're that desirable. But I think you'll find out today that these things run good. And that little red barn pop-up, well, you know, I think it helps. I think part of the theme of all this is there's so many ways to skin a cat, and there's so many ways to come up with a good running saw for just general farm work and firewood work. I think that will qualify if it lasts. We'll see. You know the top end well. We'll see if the bottom end lasts. But if that bottom end stays together, again, it has the X-Torque crank, X-Torque carburetor, and had you had a blown up X-Torque, all the rest of the bits and pieces like the handle and the tank handle and stuff like that you could use as well. And actually have a good saw. I really think you can do that. And we'll see if that aftermarket bottom end holds up. We had one come apart already. Let's just see if these last for a year. And if this time next year these saws are still running, I think it proves the concept. That's the premise. So let me take a few cuts and we'll discuss from there. I have to do a little tweak and tune, I think. And we're going to get iced on because we had a big ice storm last night, and the trees are now melting and just dropping ice and water all over the place as they melt. If I was a photographer, I'll tell you what, there were some gorgeous pictures this morning. So anyway. So what you have here is two good running saws. You know what I'm saying? No doubt about it. They really don't feel that much apart in terms of how fast they are. They really don't. They're about the same. What feels like to me is my 365 build has a little bit better chain, and the Madsen 372's chain's a little bit more whooped. That's really the difference in these saws. The point is that with this eclectic set of stuff, you still get a saw that'll cut some wood quite well, thank you very much. Well, it's passing the noodle test, and I'm going to take a little break, get a little bit of water and roll those logs up and then finish noodling with the saw. But that's a success right there. That's a strong saw. Lots of fun. I guess my conclusion in all this stuff with the aftermarket parts really hasn't changed over the last 6 or 7 years. And that is, while it's a lot of fun for a hobby type, doing like the junk pile builds here, you can get some use out of dead saws by using aftermarket parts in a sort of a cost-effective way. They simply aren't as strong and as durable as OEM parts. It just aren't. Even that HyWay top end, which is supposed to be one of the better ones, you know, that's kind of my gauge. You know, it fragged. Plating came off. I've never seen plating come off a stocker. That top end right there on that saw, I bet that outlasts the saw parts in my desire to run it. And that's kind of what the professional really wants. You know, like Matt, the guy who tests my stuff from time to time. He cares about the performance the first few times he runs it. And then as the work day goes on, and the work week, the work month, what he needs is that saw to start and run. And there's really no place in that world for aftermarket parts, is the conclusion I've come to. Nothing's really changed. Now, having said that, for a guy who likes to tinker and a hobby type, those low-cost aftermarket parts give you a lot of playtime for less money than OEM by far. So sometimes it makes the saw hobby actually affordable. And no doubt you can get a decent running saw. I mean, that one has aftermarket handle and piston, right? And it's cutting these blocks. So it's not like you can't cut wood with the aftermarket stuff. It's just not as durable. And really that's the takeaway over the last few years. And it's one of those things where the more things change, the more they stay the same. Because like that squarish handle on the junk pile saw, I first saw those back in 2013-14 in the first video. I didn't like them then, I don't like them now. But, you know, I built the Hudzel saw, and that cut a lot of wood. I used a Hudzel top end on a X-Torque bottom end to build Cyclops. That was a good running saw. This is a good running saw too, but none of these things, as much as fun and as much as I like to brag about them, they certainly aren't as durable as a good solid OEM saw with a dealer network to support it. And it's just never going to change from what I can tell, at least not to this point in time. But let me just keep cutting. You know, this thing here with that little red barn pop-up piston is doing pretty good. It's not coming apart. there it is. That's the first job for that little 365 base saw. I would consider that an absolute success. It runs pretty strong, you can't deny that. Yes, it has a surprising amount of torque for what it is. I think part of that's because of the compression hit. But didn't get to run that today. I think I'm going to try to load up and get a couple loads up, and all the weather stays good. But anyway, talk to you later. Bye for now. Not a bad little build.